Chapter 1. Keep pedaling. A. Milne said, "Promise me you'll always remember you're braver than you believe." I thought learning to ride my new bicycle would be facing my greatest fear. I was 9 years old and it was tall and I was not. While reluctant to initiate actual moving contact with my bike, I was overjoyed to receive it. But then it's one thing to have something in one's possession and another to own it in the sense you actively embrace its purpose. I dreamt about it, though. In my dreams, I beat all the neighborhood kids in speed races while my ponytail stood straight out behind me like a raccoon's tail in gale-force winds. Truth, though, was my legs were short, which prevented any official speed records because I was too busy trying to keep the metal contraption upright while my ponytail slapped me silly as I gyrated from side to side. Eventually, I conquered my fear of falling by learning to toe-tap the pedals as they spun, which kept the bicycle moving fast enough to keep it and me from crashing. Life soon taught me much bigger lessons about fear and falling as I felt like a flea perched on the edge of an eagle's wing swooping above Kilimanjaro. In reality, though, all 5 feet of me was tucked inside a basket held aloft by hot air, not mine, that pulsated inside a balloon suspended over the Maasai in Africa. Below us, elephants stampeded. Honest, I couldn't make this up, not about me. If you had known me as a young adult, you would not have believed that I, Ms. Anxiety, would allow myself to be put in that kind of intimidating scene ever. Oh, who am I kidding? If you'd met me last week, you would have been suspicious. I tend to be skittish and verbal about heights and falling. Besides, I'm resistant to handing over the steering wheel of my life to anyone. And get this, when I asked the hot air man who was steering the wicker crate what his name was, he replied, "Moses." "Moses," I squealed, "you've got to be kidding. Why, you didn't even make it to the promised land, and you're driving my basket?" To which he announced, "We will be crashing soon." Oh, yes, he did. "Listen, Mo, don't say the word crash even as a joke," I insisted. "Oh, it's no joke," he assured me. "We have little to no control when the basket collides with the earth. We just bounce along with it until it comes to a stop." A wry grin seemed to catch the edge of his mouth as though Moses enjoyed this information. It seemed to me as though this data should have been offered to the participants prior to boarding. Any man who will say the words crash and collide to a former agoraphobic as we dangle in mid-air obviously has abandonment issues and was left far too long to bob about in the Nile. It suddenly occurred to me that all that separated me from a free fall were a few ropes and a deflatable balloon. A vivid picture of us landing amidst a hungry pride of lions and being pounced upon filled the screen of my mind. Fear does that. It rushes in and paints boldly on our vulnerability in hopes we'll subscribe to fear's next scary edition. And my reaction might have been more inflated if there'd been time, except suddenly, as Moses had predicted, we crashed and bounced until we skidded to a stop. Quite jarring. We crawled out. No lions in sight. There was just a distant herd of great horned beasts and a skulking hyena who surveyed our arrival with disdain. Once my feet were planted on terra firma, where I felt a tad more in control, I liked Balloon Moses way better. But then I've always been drawn to Moses. Not the hot air one, but the wilderness Moses, the Bible one who against all odds and his own wild fears lived to view the promised land. It is through the rigors of God's people and the frailty of their humanity that we will take our own skittering pulse. Because let's face it, life can be scary. 9/11 scary. Tornado scary. Pain scary. Job loss scary. War scary. Death scary. Yada yada scary. And it's the yada yada fears I want to focus on, those that loom large in our eyes, or even the ones we cannot see yet. The unfamiliar noise in the night, the breaking news report, the approaching storm warnings, the aging process. It's my belief and experience that if we can handle the daily fears, we will be better prepared to deal with the more profound fears. Although any little fear can potentially morph into a biggie when we are in the struggle. Symptoms tend to magnify their threat via emotional intensity, conveying danger in the moment. Like the time I was at a friend's house in the deep South, think Texas deep. I was walking through the kitchen when I realized there was a sizable scorpion on the wall. Yes, a scorpion. How do you spell scream? My host had retired for the evening several hours prior, so to actually scream seemed inappropriate, if not ungrateful. Packing my bags and calling a cab was an option, but my dilemma was they had 2 young children, and I felt responsible to do something with this hostile critter so that they were not left in harm's way. While I don't have arachnophobia, the fear of spiders, neither do I have warm fuzzies for anything that can send me rushing to the nearest emergency room. In the moment, that Texas creepy crawler appeared to be the size of a dinner plate, and its arched tail looked like a cannon. I searched about looking for a weapon. I thought, dynamite? Shotgun? Jackhammer? But all I could find was a mason jar, a paper plate, and a coffee cup. Then I had a come-to-Jesus talk with myself, followed by some mental cheerleading. Come on, honey, you're way bigger than him, way bigger. You can do this, I said in a whimper. My hands were shaking. My heart was doing the butterfly stroke, and sweat had reached the top of my knee socks. Then suddenly, I reacted. I trapped him with the jar against the wall, scraped him down inside the jar with the plate, and covered the jar with the plate, setting the coffee cup on top as an anchor. Phew! Done. Well, almost. My body wasn't finished reacting. My heart ricocheted off my tonsils, my body tremors vibrated my headscarf, and my socks squished with each step I took. I double-checked my prisoner. Okay, triple-checked him, to reassure myself of its secure entrapment, and then went to bed. That night, I awoke frequently to check the walls of my bed for creepy crawlers. The next morning, I anticipated a medal from my host for my heroic combat, but instead I got a shrug and a smile. Seems scorpions are no big deal when you face the enemy on a regular basis. And for your information, I'm almost certain someone had shrunk that scorpion. He didn't look anywhere near as gargantuan in the light of day. And the cannon on his rear end had shriveled into a derringer. I didn't know when I first saw the scorpion that I could handle him all by myself. In fact, I was certain I couldn't. And I wouldn't have tried if I could have figured another way out. But what a relief afterward when I realized I did it. Little me tackled a new fear and won. I had more courage than I knew. As I said, while I am not an arachnophobic, I was an agoraphobic, afraid of open spaces and crowds of people. Although I would argue that by the time I was housebound, I had collected many more fears than just spaces and people, fears that short-circuited my freedom and fried my reasoning skills. I was afraid of doctors, hospitals, medicine, elevators, heights, tunnels, bridges, people's opinions, just to name a few. Fear does to us what I did to the scorpion. It traps us and makes our world smaller. And then it sends scary messages to our brain, setting off seismic physical reactions, which have the potential of creating an environment of internal terror. Here's the good news. Just as there is a way into the cycle of paralyzing fear, there is a way out of the intimidating labyrinth. Fear suggests that it came on suddenly, when actually it's been setting up housekeeping inside of us most of our lives. Satan has just been waiting for a situation where he would catch us off guard and set off fear explosives. If you are bound up in fear that keeps you from living life to its fullest, I want to say that it is possible to one day go on safari to a far land, dangle in a hot air balloon over stampeding animals, and lasso scorpions as a pastime. You may be thinking I'd be happy to just be more functional with the freedom to come and go in my life without the shadowed companion of anxiety in tow. I understand. I remember when my prayer was to simply get to the grocery store and back home again without a panic attack. I couldn't imagine how delicious freedom would be, how wide the door would open, or how far around the globe it would take me. I didn't know God's expansive heart. Was my recovery fast? Nope. Was it easy? Not for moi. Has it been worth it? Oh, glorious world and darling people, yes, yes, yes. Oh, wait. Am I saying I never have to battle my way through anxiety? Of course not. But therein lies the liberty. Now I know how. It doesn't trap me or hold me prisoner as it once did, nor does it threaten me with isolation and incrimination. The reason is that I discovered the startling truth. We are more because God is more than we can even imagine, and He created us with unending potential. As we grow stronger mentally, it helps us to balance emotionally. And while it is a journey toward mental, emotional, and social harmony, gratefully there are many spectacular views along the path, whether pedaling on our bike, in an aerial basket, or afoot. As we take hold of this understanding, we become calmer, hopeful, and much more joyful. We are a virtual surprise party waiting to celebrate. Just about the time we think we know ourselves, we do or say something that startles or even impresses us, right? It's because we are more than we know. Yes, I'll be saying this often. I believe if we can grasp even a speck of God's greatness, it will free us from fighting for control wherever we find ourselves. Deliberate on this. So if the Son makes you free, you will be free indeed. That's found in the book of John 8:36. And discuss this, if even in your own heart. What promotes your inner harmony? Music? Quiet? Certain people? Do you believe you are more than you know? Braver? Smarter? Sturdier? In your words, describe God's expansive heart.